This 27-year-old college dropout built a $30 million startup while living a digital nomad life.
We were not doing very well, and then suddenly, just hundreds of thousands of users. Making $2,000 a month to $10,000 a month instantly. I mean, one hack that I did was and then I realized that, okay, I have thyroid cancer. It was weird. I had to do this kind of like morbid calculation. The time I'm going to be spent recovering, is it worth the time I'm giving up now when my startup is the hottest? Yeah, I've never had an experience like that before, to kind of like gamble with your own health or life. When you find problems like that, you can actually build that into like billion-dollar businesses because...
What's his secret? How did he do it? Well, stay tuned as we reveal all that and more. Hi, David. It's good to meet you. Tell us a little bit about who you are, your company, and then how in the world did you get into the world of wild AI?
Yeah, so I'm David. I'm 27 years old. I'm one of the co-founders of Jenni.ai. Jenni is basically an AI writing assistant that helps you research and write faster. My co-founder always loved AI. He actually did his PhD in natural language processing until I convinced him to drop out. And I always loved writing, so the perfect mix between both of us was AI and writing together.
But now you're basically living, what do they call it, the digital nomadic lifestyle?
Yes, it's a fine line between digital nomad versus technically homeless. So like I don't really have a home. I just find Airbnbs around the world. And
yeah, which is where we're at. It's a gorgeous lake. Yeah. Let's continue on. So David, for a guy that lives out of Airbnbs, tell us a little bit where we are and why we're here and why it's important.
Yeah, this is where my parents currently live. So I pretty much worked inside the bedroom of this house every day, and it's pretty much where we went from like zero to slight success, and then where I got my first investment, which took me to Malaysia.
So how does somebody start a tech company such as Jenni.ai with no coding experience at all? What's your advice for our non-technical guys out there and gals?
I think it's impossible to do yourself. The big thing is you have to find a technical person to partner with. I mean, there are a lot of tools now where you could make websites and you can get the basics of any product with no-code tools, but you know, something as complex as Jenni, you do need to partner with someone who has that technical expertise, which is what I did. So I would definitely suggest that should be your first hire, your technical co-founder that you find.
Can you give us an insight on how you found that person?
My name is Henry. I'm the CTO and co-founder. So David and I met a couple weeks before college at a Chipotle because we were afraid we couldn't find any friends at college. But it turns out we had a lot in common.
And we're like, hey, instead of roommates, you love AI, I love writing. We should join forces and make something.
Yeah, and we made a lot of projects together over the last 5 years. Writing really high quality content that's affordable is not really available right now on the marketplace, which is why we made this SaaS product called Jenni.ai.
We're standing at this church that you were involved in how many years ago, or still to today?
More than a decade ago now. Yeah.
So what prompted the pivot from content agency to SaaS? And give us a little context if you can.
Yeah, so Jenni started out as just us having in-house writers and us trying to make them write 10% faster, 20% faster with AI. And we had some clients, we were maybe doing 2,000, 4,000 a month with that. But then something called GPT-3 came out. This is the predecessor to ChatGPT. And that was actually a huge advancement in natural language processing, just the first time that AI could write text that was actually usable, that was actually high quality. Basically, when that GPT was released, we realized that instead of us actually having in-house writers and then selling to these SEO agencies, the digital marketing agencies, we'd actually just make the software where we could give it directly to the agencies and they could have AI write a lot of their content for them.
The pivot made sense. I mean, it's just technology change. So for those watching, are in the tech world, any advice as far as just pivoting when technologies change? Because they always do.
Yeah, people are afraid in general of like pivoting. People are afraid in general of change, I think. But you know, Jenni started off as an agency, then it turned into a SaaS, a software. And then we were targeting digital marketing agencies owners. Then we started targeting generally. Then we started targeting academia. And now we're going much more into like the research side of academia. So like our startup is constantly reinventing ourselves. And I think that the riskiest thing a business can do is not take risk.
Interesting. The riskiest thing a business can do is not take risks.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think Mark Zuckerberg said that, so I don't want to take too much credit. But if you just kind of do the same thing, especially if it's not working.
For the first few years, it was extremely painful, and no matter what we did, we couldn't seem to get the ball rolling.
If your business is not working, then you should definitely think about a hard rebrand, a hard market pivot, or if some new technology comes out, finding some way to incorporate that. So yeah, that would be just my general advice, is be open to changing everything.
All right. So your first investment,
yes,
you got on a plane?
Yes.
Share the story with us. How much was it? How did you use it? And anything else you want to highlight?
I was on a plane from Seattle, San Diego. It was when I was in college, and I noticed the guy next to me had a site called Coinbase open, which is like for cryptocurrency. I was like, okay, this guy likes investing in risky stuff. Maybe he'll want to invest in my startup. And the great thing is, once the plane leaves the runway, they're your captive prisoner for 3 hours. You could just pitch them continuously. So I was able to tell him about what I was working on and a little bit about my background. And the crazy thing is, I think less than 2 days later, we met up somewhere in San Diego. He just gave me a cashier's check for $10,000. Holy shit, that's crazy. Which is not that much, but for a college kid, 10,000 is like, I can actually make maybe a few bets or maybe a few moves with my business. And so
the wild thing is how you got it too, you can get it anywhere. That's crazy.
Yeah, he just believed in what we were building, and we built out a prototype. Unfortunately, that startup ended up not working, but we were able to actually make him whole. We returned the $10,000 from the revenue we generated with that business. So
talk to us a little bit about the early entrepreneurial endeavors, because obviously you were thinking bigger than just the lemonade stand, the typical things. You were trying different things out, you failed here and there. Share with us some of the things you've learned and what apps or things you tried starting up and they failed and so on.
I probably failed close to 6 or 7 companies at this point until I got to Jenni. I started by making like a clothing brand, which obviously did not do well. And then I made a dating app, which also did not do well. Pretty much all the cliches you could think of. And when you have a failure, you learned 1 or 2 skills that you need to be a successful founder, each kind of iteration. So
it's like a stepping stone.
Yeah, like how to launch faster, how to actually conquer distribution, how to actually talk to your users, and more high level things, just like how to be more persistent, how to be more disciplined.
Yeah, you went out there and you did things as opposed to people overanalyzing, sitting on their behinds and doing nothing, right?
True.
So you've learned quite a bit, it sounds like, through these failures. 6, 7 companies, and here you are today. What's one thing that comes to mind that contributed to where you are today out of all those experiences, you think?
The most important thing was when you fail your first company and you literally feel like the biggest loser, you feel like a fraud, you feel like everything's kind of over for you. But you have to really not be afraid of things not going your way, because in order for a startup to succeed, you need like really fast iterative cycles of like learning, building, and trying new things. And when you're doing so many tests, half of them are bound to fail. So you have to be okay with that feeling.
Despite these small wins, I was still slowly losing my mind. It's not panning out for me, man. No one wants to talk to me, man.
How do you build a huge startup like the one that we're talking about here today? You guys, it's not as crazy as it sounds. So keep watching as David reveals exactly how he made it happen. So what was your revenue in the initial SaaS days? Like what are some of the products that made the difference and turning point for you as well?
We were at $2,000 a month. We were basically, that was just our plateau. We could never really break.
That was the ceiling?
2,500. Yeah, I think for a year we were just stuck fluctuating around that number. And the weirdest thing that kind of got us out of that barrier was that we actually started pulling out features. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So you had all these features, but not all of them.
Yeah, I feel like business principles are super counterintuitive. You would think raising the price of a product would hurt conversions, but sometimes raising the price of something increases perceived value, and you could actually get more sales, which is very strange. In our case, we had a product with a ton of features, and what we had was actually a bloated product that people didn't fully understand. Also, because we had so many features, they had a perceived feeling that all these features were kind of like mediocre. When we started removing features and we started really focusing on this core product offering that we had, which is just an AI autocomplete, helping the human just write faster with an AI augmenting them. Then we started seeing much higher retention, faster growth, and just people resonating more with our product. So
did you hesitate to do that first, or that just kind of a light bulb moment? You're like, no, we need to do this. Like,
yeah, I mean,
how does that happen?
I had a huge hesitation because we spent a lot of months building these things. So from a third party looking and be like, oh yeah, just remove that or just don't do that. It's easy from the outside, but from the inside, you're like, is this kind of like the soul of my startup?
Right.
Like, to make these big decisions.
I mean, it probably applies more in the techie world, but it kind of makes sense because you get your customer feedback and they're like, hey, we want this feature, and you can either provide it, but then that sort of dilutes the main focus, right? It can.
We as humans were much more social animals than truth-seeking animals, So if I were to tell you, what do you think about my product? It's very unlikely you'll tell me the terrible things about a product because you're a nice guy and we've somewhat become friends now. So like you'll probably tell me things that I just want to hear. But those things are not really helpful to me at all. Then I might ask you like, what are things you dislike? And then you might be able to verbalize it how you want to verbalize. But if you ask somebody before cars were invented, like what do you want? You say, oh, I want faster horses, right? Like you'll be stuck kind of in the current paradigm of thinking when you talk to users. And so you want to get it down to like the very base truths of their behaviors and why they are the way they are. And then from there, you can kind of start building up these hypotheses of how you could like improve their lives.
Right. Do you want to use the power of AI for your business? Then you need to check out Durable, the fastest and easiest way to establish and grow your online presence. With Durable, you can generate a website in 30 seconds using their AI website builder. And we're not talking bare bone, boring templates. You'll get all the professional features a business website needs, like integrated contact forms, social feeds, Google reviews, all without coding skills or design experience. That's not all Durable can do either. This powerful platform has an AI-driven CRM, invoicing tools, and an AI assistant to help automate tedious administrative tasks. It can even write content for you with the AI Blog Builder and Google Ad Writer. More than 6 million websites have been created with Durable, and you can join them for free. Click the link below to set up your free account today and use code UpFlip30 for a 30% off. All right, Blitz time with David. Thanks for submitting your questions, you guys. First one is, how do you start an AI company without knowing how to code?
You cannot. You have to find someone who knows how to code.
All right, how did you network to get your product into universities on a scale that would allow for profitability with minimal marketing budget and no connections?
You just don't do it.
You don't do it?
Yeah, there's a long sales cycle selling to universities. Just go bottoms up. We're just going straight for the students.
Okay, on average, how many hours does you or he work a day?
9, 10.
Seeing the current technological landscape, what AI industries do you see emerging next?
There's a lot of cool stuff happening with generative AI, like with videos. I think that'll be the next big wave. But honestly, anyone who acts like they know what's going to happen, they don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. Favorite poem or poet that still gets you in your feels after multiple reads?
Whatever Jenni writes for me, that's the most beautiful poem for me lately.
Will AI save us or destroy us all?
I'll say, let's be optimistic, save us. Yeah.
Okay. You're working late. What's your favorite late night snack?
Probably cereal, because it's super fast.
What's a company feature or emerging technology that you're currently obsessed with?
I love to play with Midjourney lately. It has nothing to do with my startup. I don't use it for anything, but it's just cool to make Batman eating a sandwich or something.
Okay. All right. That's a wrap. So you're a college dropout.
Yes.
You quickly discover being broke out of college is not as romantic as some of the Netflix shows make it seem, right?
Yeah.
Talk to us about that time in your life. What's going on in your head? How did you prevent self-doubting, creeping thoughts like that from taking over and really just use that as an opportunity, as a next stepping stone further?
When you fail when you're in school or in college, it's not as bad because you're still kind of a student. You feel like, okay, well, I can still just do well in classes. But once you drop out and things are not going your way, you've staked your entire life on this idea. And when things aren't going well, it can feel like literally everything is crumbling around you, which is not fun. But the way to kind of maintain your sanity and not let the self-doubt take over you is just, if your present isn't that great and you're in a lot of pain, it's good to project yourself into the future at times. Be like, okay, if I put in the work today, tomorrow, for many weeks, the 5 years from now, 10 years from now, David is very happy. So
a lot of work, a lot of mundane, repetitive days.
Yeah, it's not as glamorous as the Gary V's and all these Instagram people make it out to be.
Where does this drive in you come from? Is that the way you were raised by your father, grandpa, whoever had an influence on you, or how do you explain that?
I don't know. I would say it's like half and half. Both my parents are entrepreneurs, so I learned a lot from them. I saw.
Do you come from a lot of money?
No.
Because that helps,
Oh, yeah.
Kids are born into a pretty substantial family, and daddy gives them a 0 interest loan for $1 million, and
yeah, dude, I would
not
love to
everybody
get one
has
of those
that.
daddies. But my parents gave me something much more valuable than money. They gave me a support system and love and the ability for me to have confidence in myself. But I also think part of it is like the way I was able to stay resilient is because I didn't have a lot of other options, I didn't have a college degree. I didn't have any like high salary like skills at the time. So all I had was this startup. Quitting was not really an option for me.
So what
Yeah.
was your first big break, David? When was it? What was it?
Yeah, my first big break, I didn't know at the time. I got invited to like a really small podcast, and it had barely any listeners, but to my luck, there was one VC scout for Jason Calcanis listening to the podcast. They sent me an email. Unfortunately, I missed the first email.
You missed the email?
I didn't see it in my inbox, which could have been the most disastrous mistake I've ever made. But luckily, they sent me a second email saying, like, hey, want to bump this back to the top?
Wow.
I saw it. Then I got accepted into the program, which came with a $100,000 investment to my startup. That was just necessary because we were running out of money. The startup wasn't doing very well at the time. And I learned how to pitch from Jason. It's called Launch Accelerator. I learned how to pitch there. And the money obviously went a long way. And yeah, it was just like our first kind of lifeline that we got, besides the 10K from the plane. But, you know, this was the time where we actually started to be introduced to the more of the Silicon Valley-esque part of running a startup.
That's amazing, because what I read between the lines is like, hey, if you get an invite from a podcast show, even if they don't have a lot of viewers, don't say no.
I remember when we had no success, I would even respond to the spammy LinkedIn messages that I got that they literally sent to everybody. Just like whatever I could do, doing cold calls, like everything I could do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a real entrepreneur. So for Jenni, you know, things were like this for a while. You get the investment you desperately needed, but that didn't really change things still.
Yeah. But even after investment, we still saw very little to no growth over the next 2 years.
What happened where it went from here to like here, like that moment that we can learn from? What was it?
The funny part is that first investment, between that, there was another investment. We had to raise another $250,000 or like $250,000 to $500,000 to keep us going until we hit our big break, which was when we were featured in one of the most viral Twitter threads in history. It's a list of AI tools that this guy Zain Khan released, and it went crazy viral. It's like one of the most viral tweets ever. My friends from all over the world were taking screenshots of this tweet being just like repurposed on LinkedIn or on Medium or on some person on YouTube remade it. And that was the big break where we went from making $2,000 a month to $10,000 a month instantly. And then
that just sounds like pure luck in a way, isn't it?
You know what? It is luck, but there was a lot of hours that we put in to get us to that point where our product had to be in a place where someone like him would want to promote it. You know, I don't want to act like it was all calculated and we had everything.
Right.
Like, I actually think a lot of entrepreneurship is luck.
It is, yeah.
Like,
we hear it all over again.
Yeah, and you can't really control the creation of luck, but you can control like the odds of getting lucky, like how often you roll the dice. You can't control what numbers come out on the dice, but you could wake up and put in more hours every day to roll it more often, and then you could also spend more time to capitalize on luck. That's something you have control over. So, you know, when that Twitter thread came out, we immediately capitalized on the wave of users. We tried to learn as much as we could, built for these new users that came in, and even though that was a huge spike in users, ever since then we've only grown faster since that month because we were able to capitalize on that.
Doesn't life throw us curveballs from time to time? I think we've all been there.
I would say so.
Yours was the cancer diagnosis. Walk us through what was going on in your mind, heart. How did you get through it? What did you learn? Did that change your perspective on life?
Yeah, I mean, it was just very strange timing. It was the time when like our startup was growing the fastest. It was when we were not doing very well, and then suddenly just hundreds of thousands of users pouring in. And then I realized that I had a little bit of health complication. But yeah, I mean, the biggest learnings are not super poignant. It's just cliche stuff like you feel the love that people have for you. You feel more grateful about the basic things that you have. And it was weird. I had to do this kind of like morbid calculation of like, okay, I have thyroid cancer, but it's not like super lethal. I probably could have pushed the surgery off till next year because it's a slow moving cancer. So there's a time of like, I'm gonna be out of commission for a few weeks. The time I'm gonna be spent recovering, is it worth the time I'm giving up now when my startup is the hottest? Or it could be the hottest right now. And so I had to kind of do that quick math in my head, which was, yeah, I've never had an experience like that before, to kind of like gamble with your own health or life and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a big scare.
But honestly, like I think that what I had was, it was just like a quick in and out. Like I was able to kind of get surgery, pull out the tumors, whatever, it was all good. I think that there's things that are a lot harder. Every entrepreneur probably has like really stressful things, extraneous things outside of their startup. So any business that survives, any business that thrives is like almost miraculous.
Guys, if you're enjoying this video, we appreciate if you hit the like and subscribe button so that we can continue to bring you this amazing content. Take a second and do that right now. So Jenni today has 2.5 million
Users.
Yes. Right. And how in the world are you finding new customers? Can you share with us kind of the strategies that are working? Is it paid influencer advertising? How much money are you spending? Just to get an idea.
Yeah, so in the beginning, we were basically just a one-trick pony of just continually making organic TikToks. But lately, we've been diversifying our growth channels just out of that organic TikToks. Actually, it was really scary because when summer break started, all of our social media channels started really tanking and flopping because obviously no academic or student wants to spend their summer watching TikToks about school when they're not even attending school. So that was kind of what forced us to really diversify into influencer marketing, SEO, building out our own affiliate program, and paid channels as well. So it was a little risky, I would say. In some ways, it was a blessing in disguise that we really hit that wall of organic TikTok when summer came around, because that forced us to innovate and spread out our growth, our distribution channels.
How much are you spending on just advertising as a whole, in general, gross?
I would say we spend probably about close to 70,000 per
70
month.
grand?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lot of money.
Well, we're talking Jenni's global, right?
Yes.
So we're hitting almost all the 180 plus countries all over the world.
It is still a daunting number I'm still not used to seeing that number because, yeah.
And so as of 2024, Jenni's doing great. What kind of profits and revenue are you doing? Just curious.
Yeah, so our revenue is around $300,000, $400,000 per month.
And I know you're in growth mode, so profits obviously change.
Yeah, we are profitable, which is cool. So we're growing profitably. I guess if we weren't in growth mode, the profit margin would be somewhere between 80 to 90%.
Man, that's wild. Is that pretty standard for like the tech world, software world?
Yeah, it's very different from
the margins are just so
yeah. Well, for agencies or physical products, it's like much higher, the profit margins for software. So that's one of the good parts about building something. It's why we're able to have such a small team of like 9 people, and we're able to make something pretty cool, in my opinion, out of a very biased perspective. But yeah.
That's incredible. Would you mind giving us a quick overview on your overhead today, where it is? Because I would imagine with over 2 million users, David, you've probably got quite a bit of operation and expenses and so on. So what does it cost to run it?
Yeah, even though we're a software company, I would say like our biggest expense is still just the people. Probably spend about 60 to 70K per month just on...
that's fair.
Yeah, and then we obviously have some software costs, but thankfully we're profitable. Our expenses, we try to keep a really lean operation. So.
It sounds like, because you don't have any buildings you lease, everyone's working from home.
Offices are like the worst scam.
The greatest office here, right?
My bed, yeah.
And you keep it pretty lean. What's one thing you wish you would have known before you set out on the entrepreneurial path? And what stands out?
Yeah, I think I wish I'd have had a better understanding of like how boring every day is as an entrepreneur.
That's powerful, I think, yeah.
There's a lot of fetishization of being a startup founder, you know? For example, I watched The Social Network, and I thought that's kind of how it is being a startup founder, of just like, you're hacking and you're doing crazy things and you're growing and like you're getting off. But like, honestly, the 90% of days as a startup founder is just you sit down and you do really boring, like
mundane things.
There's always some growth problem or tax problem, or you have to hire somebody, and like the joy doesn't come from actually doing the task. It's kind of like believing in your mission and working with passionate people and kind of propelling yourself. But like, it's just not as sexy of a lifestyle as one may think.
How important is it to keep an open dialogue with your customer base, and why? What does that result in?
Speaking to your users early on, it's more important than even the money coming in. Like if you could choose between making a few $100, making a few $1,000 versus having very in-depth conversations with like a subset of your users that actually use your product and trying to find out how to make your users love that product, that is the key difference between a product that's just kind of flopping and doing okay and is destined to die versus a product that's going to just continually spread and bring delight to everybody that uses it. So
what's the most effective way, David, to communicate with your base?
I will say, first of all, it's really difficult to talk to your users. It's very difficult to get them on the phone, get them to speak with you. Little did I know this was about to be extremely painful, and I was about to be rejected for 5 hours, with most people not even picking up my calls, which you're about to see.
Thank you for calling. Your call is. Thank you for calling. Please leave your message. All of our representatives. No one is available. Thank you for calling.
I mean, one hack that I did what back when Jenni was B2B was I would just cold call users. I would say, I'm a student, I'm really interested in this industry, would love to learn more about what you guys do. Hi, John. Hi, Natalie. Thanks so much for picking up my call.
No, I don't have any. No, I'm all right, thanks.
I actually just lost.
Got a full staff. Thank you.
Obviously, when you do cold calls, you need to have thick skin because a lot of them are going to be annoyed and not want to talk to you. But you have to kind of find whatever way to do that. And it was worth it to get rejected and kind of treated like an annoying person. But then you were able to have those conversations, and through those insights, you could actually make like a delightful product.
How has it changed today in terms of how you communicate?
Yeah, I mean,
with the customer base? Is there software you've developed? Is there a process, a hack that you...
Yeah, I mean, these days, a lot of our learnings comes from the behaviors of our users, which is pretty cool.
I see. So
we'll
the
do
back end,
we'll do
analytics and everything?
We'll do some A/B tests of maybe we'll put like some opt-in, like, hey, we're building this feature, you have to opt into it, and then we to see how many people actually opt in, and then we're like, okay, so it seems like this feature is something that users are highly requesting or highly want, or we would maybe give 2 different subsections of our user group like a slightly different experience and see which of them convert more or which of them stay on Jenni longer.
Yeah. So you're always trying different things.
Yeah, we're trying different things, but that still doesn't replace talking to users. We still incentivize them. Hey, if you want a free month of Jenni, just get on call with me, and we'll give you a free month. And like I said, the money, we're happy to give free months as long as they come and talk to us and tell us what they hate about our product, so that we can hopefully become slightly better week over week.
Right. We're always on the hunt for all sorts of entrepreneurs. So if you know someone that would be a great guest on our channel, such as David, please use the link below to nominate somebody. What are some advantages of being a digital nomad, and how has that empowered you as a CEO? And
I would say, like, I work many hours every day, so it doesn't leave a lot of time to do a lot of hobbies or anything outside of work. But when you're a digital nomad and you're constantly traveling country to country, even a simple thing is taking like a 30-second stroll around the block. That can recharge your battery a lot faster because you kind of feel the culture, you feel the new experiences from in a new country. So it allows you to kind of be way more efficient with your time. And also, like, just moving past efficiency, it's just like, what is the point of being successful? What is the point of making money? Is to like have really awesome memories and great experiences. So I think for me, it's a better trade-off to actually like have a somewhat happy life throughout that journey, because if I'm not happy now, there's no guarantee I'll be happy later in life. So I try to just be happy.
tell us where you're going, because you're leaving somewhere.
Yeah, so I'm going to Vietnam this week,
That's
and then
cool.
after that I'll be in Korea.
Just a one-way trip?
I only go one way, and then when I feel like I'm ready for the next place, then I just book a flight. Yeah.
That's it. So you're pretty open on Twitter in terms of what you get paid, the hiring process. You're kind of an open book. So
Yes.
how has that strategy paid off? How has it added to your success? Talk to us what that stems from.
To be honest, it doesn't help too much in terms of like the business side, because it actually invites a lot of people to copy your product if they see how successful you are, what you do, and they copy your marketing. I mean, there are many accounts that just literally rip our TikTok videos we make word for word. And one thing that helped was when building in public was honestly just meeting more like-minded people, meeting VCs, meeting other founders. And I think the most important thing overall is just creating a company is extremely painful and can be terrible at times, and just being completely transparent, open has made it easy to make friends and make the journey like slightly less lonely. And I travel a lot, so there are many times where a really awesome accomplishment will happen and I'm just alone in an Airbnb, but it makes it slightly more fun when I can just post on Twitter, and then now I have my internet friends jumping around with me around the world. So I would say that's the best thing. It's just like good for my like sanity.
One of the things I think people don't talk enough about is the founder leader. I think those two can be quite different, and you've been in both of those roles initially and probably still today. Can you speak to that as far as the difference? Which one evolves faster? What's more important? Just kind of speak to the evolution of both of those titles and roles.
I mean, there's such huge concepts that probably mean different things to everybody, but you shouldn't even think about this idea of being a leader in the early stages. You're just a founder. You're just like searching for a solution or a problem that you could provide value and you could help solve. Let's say you're not that good of a salesman. You're not able to basically persuade people to do whatever you need. But then if you find a problem that's really to the core of somebody, if they're willing to buy it from you despite you not being that persuasive, they just like, if you build this for me, I really need it. And then when you find problems like that, you can actually build that into like billion-dollar businesses, because these are the products that are so loved that they end up selling themselves, and it ends up being valuable. And then kind of being a leader comes, I think, later down the line, and hopefully comes naturally, because as you become an expert in this specific problem space that you carve out for yourself, you should become like a natural leader because you have authority in that space, because you're almost creating that space. So yeah.
It's obvious that with Jenni, people can cheat, quote unquote, in the academic world.
Right.
Well, how do you feel about that? What do you say to the quote unquote haters towards these systems and softwares?
First of all, I don't want to dismiss them as haters. I think it's really important that AI tools don't dumb down the next generation. Students right now, they could just go to ChatGPT and they could just literally get an entire essay written for them. And we want to provide an alternative where students are still able to be in the driver's seat, still able to learn, still able to create, meaningful content, but also have AI assistance along the way. We have lucrative partnerships from schools, around the world where they want to buy 100 or 1,000 Jenni subscriptions, but they're maybe in high school or they're in middle school. And personally, I think that you shouldn't be using these AI tools unless you know how to write. It's kind of like you shouldn't be using a calculator before you know how to do basic math, because it kind of limits your development as like a writer or a learner.
Absolutely.
So it's very important that students in college understand how to interface with AI, because the whole world is going to be AI assisted, everything in the world. And it'll be very strange if the future workforce is not equipped to know how to use AI in this new world that's going to be overwhelmingly more so in the future.
It could be a common misconception that businesses and individuals think of success in the same way. I don't know if that's true or not, but let's pretend that it is.
Okay.
How do you measure success at Jenni.ai?
Primarily just three main pillars that we kind of focus on, which is just distribution, conversion, and retention. And so if we can do those three things very well, and if the market is large enough, then you should have a very, very valuable company at the end of the day. So as long as those three metrics are in a healthy spot, then I would say that's a pretty good indicator that your company is successful. But obviously, at any given time, one of those pillars is weaker than the others. And that's usually the metric that we're really working towards and looking to uplift.
All right, David, it's been absolutely a pleasure. Thanks for sharing your story. You're a pretty humble dude.
Thanks.
That's making things happen.
Thanks for talking with me.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
What an incredible story. If you guys can't wait to get your paws on more stories from founders such as David, make sure to check out this episode where a Etsy store guru is bringing in $60,000 a month from a custom dog collar business. Take a second to like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.